Well, a controversial LGBTQ bill, and some may call it the anti-gay bill, is back. It's back in Parliament. And as you can imagine, it's stirring controversy. It was one of those big issues in the lead up to the 2024 elections. And this week, when the minority leader was here, you heard him say that one of the fundamental reasons why the MPP lost elections the way they did is because of this particular bill. And they're going to make sure that the NDC also suffers the same fate, exploiting the partisanship around this whole bill. And so it set the stage already for very interesting times ahead in Parliament. Let's examine some of the key issues that are at play here. There's been 295 days it's been since the government was in power. And remember that this is a subject that the NDC pushed quite vigorously in opposition. And it was passed, but the former president refused to assent to that particular bill. And the controversy then revolves around, what do you do with that bill? Did it die with the last parliament or did it not? We'll come to that controversy pretty shortly. But if it didn't die with the last parliament, with this number of days, with 185 members of parliament, and seeing that they pushed it quite vigorously, why hasn't this been dealt with in the days that Parliament had been sitting in this particular session? So the key question that the minority guys have been asking. The Speaker of Parliament resolved one key controversy, that the bill will have to be reintroduced. And it's on the back of the majority leader's very controversial pronouncements on the floor last week when he stated, Mahama Yariga, that the bill was passed and that it is no longer within the domain of Parliament. It was within the domain of the executive, which is the precedent assigned for it to become law. And this was around the debate when it erupted in the House, when the minority guys, led by Intim Fojo, who's a lead sponsor now, sought to bring it and get it laid. And it was part of the items on the other paper. And some controversy then erupted because the next day it was missing from the other paper. But Mama Riga argued that it had been passed. So if it was in passed, it shouldn't come into Parliament. It should go to the president to sign. They left that because of the controversy that caused. The Speaker this week has pronounced on this, is settled. It will have to be reintroduced in the House. It means he has to go to the entire process again because the previous bill, which was passed, which wasn't signed, died with the previous Parliament. So that's where we are with the bill. And the Speaker, you know, he's one of those who's publicly stated that he's backing this bill, and he wants it passed and assented to so it becomes law. So he's been saying a few things. The bill passed by the 8th Parliament is gone. Bill went to the presidency, didn't come back. In essence, he believes that it's dead with the previous Parliament. But the minority has been very clear on this, that your party wanted the bill and you liked it the way it was. In other words, don't change it. There's no need to make any changes to it. What it was is what you push for. You should simply pass it and adopt and sign it into law and don't have any conversations about it. This is referencing what the president has been saying when he met the diplomatic community. He's been a lead voice on this now. And see how interesting this has been in the last administration, the previous administration last year. It was George was a lead voice on it. He's taken over because he's in the minority. So there's a partisanship there, and that has stalled the process over the period. There's a reason why it wasn't signed the last time, because the president at the time, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, believed this was politically injurious, but also injurious to the economy, considering the potential economic implications it has with our international partners. And then we've come to this subject that I talked about with Mahama Yariga making the point that he's been passed. The Speaker has settled it already on this particular matter. So all the points he's made now is now moot. And so what is the government's posture on this? The government says the president is committed to signing this particular bill, a call for a bill to be reintroduced, and there's a suggestion now that the Attorney General will now adopt this and then bring it to Parliament as a government-sponsored bill and not a private member's bill. So that's where we are with that. But some things have changed in a global context since this bill was passed last year. A few things. And the implications are not as dire as we estimate. We're just looking at a global geopolitical situation. The time when this was being pushed in the previous administration, Biden was a president. And, the Democrats are ideologically very open to gay rights, very open to diversity and inclusion, etc. So they were clear that any country that criminalizes gay and lesbian activities would be on the bad side of the US. And they've sanctioned some countries using economic tools at the time. And Ghana at the time, remember that we're going to restructuring. The economy was still on its knees. You did not want to pass a bill that would create these problems, potentially with economic sanctions. So that's the time when Biden was in power. But that has changed since. Trump, the Republicans in the US, they are not as, in fact, they just are opposed to anything that would encourage gay and lesbian rights. They believe that, take it out completely. That is why they take out all the diversity policies that Biden pursued. And so that is relaxed now. If you pass this bill in Ghana right now, the US under this current administration, the Trump administration, won't sanction you. In fact, that's what they will encourage. So that has changed a bit. And then you have the Biden's position. They obviously was against the bill. Trump is for it. IMF and World Bank position hasn't changed on the matter. But considering that the US is such a major player within the IMF, Bretton Woods institutions, and knowing Trump's position on the matter, you can get away with it slightly, even with the IMF, World Bank positions on this matter. But the EU one is an important one because the bloc, the European Union, the UK, their position on this is very clear. Their position is so that do not criminalize somebody's sexuality. And so they will potentially raise a few eyebrows once we start pushing this already. And then Ghana's economy was struggling at the time, which is why it was a bit more difficult for the previous government to push this. So where are we tonight? There is a 2-week ultimatum, I believe, that has been issued by the campaign group that is backing this particular bill. Lawyer Moses Fuamwini is my guest in the studio, together with others, to look at this bill and the controversies generating. There are threats of protest already that has been laid out. There's a press conference that was held a few days ago. We're going to put all that together, understand where we are with this very, very controversial fundamental bill bordering on our values as a country. Stay with me after this. And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. As always, brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Academic Times and Pepsodent Cavity Fighter Toothpaste. And Ghana, let's talk water tanks. Do you know the secret to real water storage? It's simple. If your tank doesn't have the tortoise on it, then it's not the correct tank. It's as simple as that. The tortoise tank, Syntex Tanks, is a champion of water tanks. It is strong, it is durable, and built to handle our Ghanaian weather, rain or shine. Syntex Tanks are strong and you're tough. And Academic Times, they are launching pretty soon, and I believe it's somewhere in November. And it's a paper and a journal that has been put together to showcase and empower students across educational levels, while the journal and the tertiary G seeks to ensure that tertiary students' research makes an impact. Look out for it when it is launched. And then tonight, before you go to bed, think about this. Every time we eat food and sugars are trapped between our teeth, leading to tooth decay, gum disease, and in some cases, foul breath. Brushing your teeth every morning and night with Pepsodent Cavity Fighter gives your teeth the protection they need, leaving you with 10 times stronger teeth. Pepsodent, every smile matters. My guest tonight, joining me for a conversation, Michael Augustus, is Senior Programs Officer, Human Rights and Social Inclusion at the Center for Democratic Development. Moses Fuamwini is Executive Secretary, National Coalition for Proper Human Sexual Rights and Family Values. And I must say, this has been a long time coming. Finally, he gets to join me in the studio. I'm grateful. We call him Badafo when we talk to him on sports and football and all matters football. But I'm grateful that today he's here. He's held a press conference. He'll talk to us about that. Emmanuel Bejra is a co-sponsor of the bill, and he's with me in the studio. He is now, I believe, the chair, Emmanuel, of the Energy Committee.
Yes.
In Parliament, and grateful to have him. Dr. Tia Abdul Kabiru Mahama is also a co-sponsor on the minority side, and he joins us too. So, co-sponsors from both NDC and MPP representing on the show today. And I want to start with you, Emmanuel, because we need an update on where the bill is currently. There's been some confusion in Parliament. Last week, has it been passed? Has it not been passed? Can you reintroduce it from the start? The Speaker gave a ruling today. So, first of all, where is the bill as we speak?
Well, the 8th Parliament bill that was passed by Parliament is now mute. We don't have a bill. All we have now is a new bill that is being introduced to the House. We are yet to lay it. We're waiting for the Speaker to give a directive, as he gave yesterday. And so now the bill is now before the House, which will be laid as soon as it's being advertised on our other paper. I'll give you some background, as we all know, that this bill was passed last Parliament, the 8th Parliament. And as you are aware, 8 of us, sponsored the bill. And we did everything possible, humanly possible, by members of Parliament to pass the bill. And you remember, 275 of us supported the bill being passed. Then it got to a point where it has to be assented to by the President. The bill was transmitted to the President, did not get to the President. We're told that it was blocked along the line, and somebody has to go to Supreme Court for interpretation, whether the President should receive in the first place or whether the bill, all this hullabaloo. Unfortunately, the then government, that was last administration, the President could not assent to it, so it has not formed a law, even though it was passed. It's like you just died and you are in the middle. You have not got into heaven, you've not gone to hell. You are just in the middle. And so God has decided that, okay, come back to the earth to do the right thing. So it's back to us now. And fortunately, we came together to start a new life for the bill. And I can tell you that from what people are saying, the bill will be passed again. And this time around, the President will assent to it.
Okay. Kabiru, that's your understanding too, right? You're also a co-sponsor. Please unmute for me.
And if you can hear me now, I want to say good evening to you and to your cherished viewers. Yeah, that is our understanding. Initially, the leader of the House gave a very rather bad impression as to the standing of that particular bill. The position was to the effect that that bill was passed in the last Parliament and that he needed guidance. But thankfully, like my senior colleague said, the Speaker yesterday brought finality to the status of the bill. We are now all at idem as to the position, as to the status of the bill. The bill is now properly before Parliament. It is going to be laid before Parliament, and it is going to go through the process. Safe to say that my expectation is that it should be treated with the same agency that all other bills of the House have been introduced. Of course, this is a bill that has gone through the process. This current bill is no different from the previous bill that was passed. And we think that within a matter of a week, once it's introduced, we should bring finality to this issue. And then the good people of Ghana would have their wishes being honored by the government, just like it was the wish in the previous government.
I remember when Ayariga said it has been passed already, and so it didn't need to come back to Parliament. Kabiru, that should have given you some comfort, because that would have meant that the president, this current president, all he needed to do was to sign it into law. But I saw that the minority side on the floor, I believe last week, raised questions about it. They were not really excited about his pronouncement.
Yeah, we were not excited because we still feel and we felt that it was not normal. We are of the view that once that parliament, like Bejira said, once that parliament was dissolved, that everything pending on that particular parliament was equally dissolved. We would have been happy, but we also feel the reluctance that if it was, you could hear from our side that if it was really passed and that it was for the president to assent, he could go ahead to assent to the bill, because our ultimate objective is to establish that and to ensure that the bill is actually passed. So we were actually not against the spirit of that statement, but we were against the propriety and the legality of that particular statement made by the leader of the House. As to the spirit, we will be happy if we wake up tomorrow to be told that the bill is now law, but because the law has to be made and properly so, following due process in line with Article 006 of the Constitution thereabout, I think that was the challenge that the minority had with the pronouncement by the leader of the House.
So it's your expectation that this, once it's been laid, I think you mentioned it shouldn't last a week. Are you just being figurative, or you literally meant you expect it to be passed in a week?
I think that even if the government or the leader of the House is so minded and is serious about this bill, we can pass it within 48 hours. In fact, within 24 hours. You remember the delay, it came the same day it was passed. You remember a lot of, in fact, no single bill of the House has gone through the House unless it is coming under the certificate of urgency. So, I mean, it could equally be advertised as something that can come under certificate of agency. It's been gazetted already. And I don't think there should be no, like, any limitation, in anything that should hinder the successful sale of the bill throughout the process. I think that realistically, if the business of the House is so minded, or the business committee is so minded, and the leader of the House is so minded to make it a priority, this bill should not take the House 48 hours to pass it. And realistically, that's a realistic statement to make, because we have bills going less than 28 hours or 24 hours in the House. Why can't we have this bill also having the same urgency that it so deserves? The good people of Ghana have waited for so long, and I don't think that the sins of the previous government were well established, and we all lament, and everyone is lamenting, and some people even say that the reluctance of the former president to sign the bill had probably caused the defeat of the MPP. I don't think that Ghanaian people would be willing for us to go through tactics or theatrics on the floor of Parliament in a way that seeks to drill the suit movement of the bill. I feel strongly that there are some members of the other side now being faced with reality and now being faced with pressure from the international community are dragging their feet on this particular bill. That is our fear. But if they are giving us the assurance that we should not harbor such a fear, I think that will also be expressed in how serious they take that particular bill as a business of the House, and how quickly they will want us to pass that bill.
Imam, before I come to Brother Fo, will he get an expedited passage?
Well, Evans, initially I was also of the same impression as majority leader, that the bill has been passed, it's been transmitted to the president. It did not get to the president. That was my initial impression, until the speaker spoke yesterday, that the bill was transmitted to the president, and the president refused, and he wrote back. So it means that it has gotten to the presidency, okay? It was transmitted to the president, so it left the domain of Parliament. I thought it was in transition. So when Ayariga spoke, I even told the coalition that, well, all we needed to do is to write to the president that, president, administration is continuing. Go ahead and sign the bill. It doesn't need to come back to Parliament. But when the speaker gave his judgment yesterday, his ruling yesterday, and said that, oh, this bill has already been transmitted to the presidency, the president wrote back, then I also changed my mind that, well, it has to go through the process again. And we are all prepared to go through the process. You heard the speaker said he has spoken to the president, and the president has not have any problem with the bill. The majority leader also said he spoke to the president doesn't have any problem with the bill. The president himself said it when he was, was on the other side of the aisle, when he was in opposition. And so I don't think we have any problem. Thankfully, the U.S. that all of us were afraid of, in those days that the former president was afraid of, Donald Trump, you know his philosophy, his view about all these things. And so why should somebody be afraid of signing? It is time for us to allow the bill to pass. Let me quickly add that it might not be the 48 hours that my colleague has mentioned. If you really want this bill to go through what we want it to go through, it has to go through it, because this is a private members' bill, not public bill. Now, private members' bill does not come under certificate of emergency.
Okay.
it has to go through the process. We need to advertise it. We need to invite experts. We shouldn't assume that because it was passed, we just put it together and brought it back. Therefore, we should just pass it like that. No, we must invite people again. We must invite opinions of people, the like minds of the coalition, the CDD, those who are against. We should invite them again to give their opinion, just as we have any bill going through the process. I've been in this house for close to about 17 years now. I've seen bills that were passed, sent back. You remember the RTI bill?
Yes.
Was in Parliament for close to a decade.
Yes.
When they came back, and then we have to start all over again. And so, yes, we will speed it up. I believe all of us will want it speeded up. We will speed it up and we would have a good bill. The good news about this bill is that when the current Attorney General was then the ranking member of Legal and Constitutional, that is Dr. Ayeni. And therefore, he has insight of this bill. We have a lot of discussion with him. He's ever ready to, appear before us. He has given his opinion already, and therefore, like he said, it will be speeded up, but we have to do the right thing.
Mr. Foreman, waiting for me. You held a press conference.
Yeah.
I want to give me what triggered that. What was it that got you to say let's take it out there in a press conference?
Well, Evans, first of all, sorry for all the dodging.
Yeah.
I think it has to do with the children. They are now grown. John is now a great musician playing the organ at the university. Fifi is finished, so I can come here in the evening and have a bit of fun with you.
Good to have you.
Good to see you too, Evans, and thanks for all the hard work that you've done. And I'm in my regalia, as you can see, the Boys Brigade Ghana Council. Okay. This weekend we are starting what we call a Brigades Week. The Boys Brigade, the age categorization. It's a Christian regimental organization, and we bring the children up. The object is the advancement of Christ's kingdom amongst boys. Sorry, I have to sell a bit of...
No, but it's relevant. I guess
very much relevant.
It explains why you're taking this on the way you are.
Exactly. And the relationship between raising our children in the right way is very relevant, because some people don't think that there's some relevancy about it. Now, you asked a very pointed question, why did we have the press conference? Now, we situated it in the context of our mid-year governing council meeting for the coalition. As you know, the coalition is an amalgamation of all Christian organizations, Muslim organizations, and then our traditional rulers. It's a kind of a tripartite, triport organization. Main objective is to respond in an intellectual manner to the whole LGBT movement and what it stands for. All right. So we usually meet in the beginning of the year and then the middle, and we hadn't had the mid-year meeting. So when these issues came up, we thought there was time to meet and then address those matters. Don't forget that we were pretty much central to the advocacy during the last year's election and even previously. And whilst we're very much apolitical, because it was such a fundamental matter during the campaign, we had been very quiet, and people started saying, hey, have you people changed your political colors and all of that? So in a sense, we had to respond. And things were getting a bit muddy when Parliament was not sure. Because, look, if you trace a bit of the trajectory, the current president, when he was in opposition, was pretty clear that when it comes to him, he will sign. And the majority of the advocacy came from NDC members of Parliament. There were some NPP members of Parliament, but they were pretty reticent. And I must be honest, they found it a bit difficult. I have no doubt, and the former president was a very good friend of mine, but he didn't like it. He didn't love the law. Where he got the basis for that from, I and him disagree. Because, and I'm sure we're going to discuss the human rights matters later. But in January, when the president won the elections, on the back of the wave of, what Ghanaians wanted, huge majority, the two things he said that I agree with him. When the Catholic Bishop Conference visited him and he asked him when is he going to append a signature, he said, unfortunately, the law has lapsed. And so I will want to assent it. So we want to bring it back. But I'm more excited about it being brought as a public bill by the Attorney General. And I love that view for two reasons. First of all, this is an election that Ghanaians had expressed a certain view. And if you look at Article 1, it's pretty clear. that sovereignty resides in the people of Ghana, and all the arms of government are supposed to be exercised for and on their behalf and for their well-being. That constitutes all officers to whom power has been delegated, both the president and the parliamentarians, into what I call constitutional trustees or agents. So you act for and on behalf. And the Constitution actually defines the object of your trusteeship or the agency. You have to act for our well-being. And well-being can be defined brilliantly. And we all know something that pushes people ahead, makes them feel better, and develops the whole entire human being. So if the president says the people have exercised their will, and therefore instead of allowing private members who are parliamentarians to bring it, I want my government, and this is a vote for all Ghanaians, to bring. I thought it was excellent. Two, technically, and to be honest with you, let me be very frank, the objections that were raised in court and decided on the 18th of September, the case was brought by, thankfully, one of my very good students, Richard Sky. And Richard knows that actually the matter that he brought we had used as a case study when I was teaching legal systems. Okay. But he raised the objections, and the objections were not decided on their merits. The case that he brought, it was decided on the very first objection that was raised, that jurisdictional matters. Can the Supreme Court deal with a bill which had not been signed? So that was on the basis on which the Supreme Court dismissed it. But there were technical objections that he had raised. That one, a private member's bill cannot superimpose a charge on the consolidated fund. And that if you said they should investigate, they should try, they should be sentenced, and they go to prison, that is going to be a cost to exactly to the state and other matters as well. So technically, he felt that the bill could not be valid because it was imposing a charge and contrary to Article 106, the clear provisions of Article 107. So those were matters that the Supreme Court never decided. And I think all, private members' bill will suffer from that deficiency. Although I must be honest, from the Speaker's point of view and from talking to Sam George and my good friend here, they are saying that the parliamentary view is that law enforcement and health matters are not matters of charge on the consolidated fine. Fine, you can raise it, but somebody can raise it in court. So bringing it as a public bill resolves that matter. Because if the Attorney General brings it, then the actual, apart from the cost in terms of law enforcement, the proper policy balance, which for the coalition is very strong. Don't forget, Evans, that when the bill was passed, everybody was complaining, oh, you're going to throw people in jail, including my very good friend, Afenyo Maki.
Are you not?
Oh, well, and I'm explaining it. But originally, and I have the original bill, which we brought, the original bill had a policy balance. And therefore, there was care, treatment and support, which by definition, and I was pretty material to the drafting of the bill, we stated that the cost would be borne by the individual himself who needed the help or by civil society organizations.
Church, etc.
Exactly. But that was taken out, and there was also flexible sentencing policy so that we recognize, and the policy balance, look, this bill was not just brought out. We thought through it. The LGBT movement and their propaganda always has been that, oh, you want to throw people in prison. We said, no. You think it's a lifestyle. You want to glamorize it. That's fine. We over here think that there are people who have got those challenges, and if they have those challenges, we help them. So in the bill, we said that if you need a care, treatment, and support, or even do an arrest, do a sentencing, trial, even when you're in prison, and you agree that you need help, then you will be given. And the law allowed for flexible sentencing. But the issue of cost became an issue because they said the health facilities, who is going to pay? Although the drafting language was clear, the former Attorney General actually drew a statement, if you remember, Godfrey, my good friend, and objected to it because there was going to be cost. So for me, that's what made the president's viewpoint that it has to come as a public bill very interesting. And I'm still insisting that now that it's going to be reintroduced, if the government doesn't have any problem, and I wish the president will go back to his own view. I have had discussions with the Attorney General. He was keen on discussing it with the private members that want to bring it so that they will draw their private members' bill and then he brings it as a public bill. I think it will resolve a lot of these issues that I have raised.
Let's ask that question then of the Kabiru. Kabiru, are you ready as a co-sponsor to withdraw it and get the government to take over? Kabiru, please unmute for me if you're there.
I think the position that the bill has to be sponsored by the executive is not something that I think is entirely true. They anchor their agreement based on Article 108 of the 1992 Constitution. And if you read the title of that particular article, they said settlement of financial matters. So clearly, the intention of the framers of the Constitution, they were referring to bills that seeks to impose charge or by way of, revenue or fiscal policies or fiscal bills. So clearly, private members do not have the capacity to bring a bill that will impose charge or that will impose charge on the Ghanaian people or draw revenue from the consolidated fund. But any bill you bring, whatever sort it is going to be about government spending in his role as the executive in the maintenance of the law and enforcing the law. So I don't think that the interpretation being placed on Article 108 of the Constitution is proper. And if it was proper, then the standing orders of Parliament wouldn't have made provision for the fact that a private member can bring a bill. So Speaker seems to agree with the position that we also hold that, look, a private member, members of Parliament, under the Constitution, under the standing orders of Parliament, can propose a bill. And that bill will seek to be enforced by the police and executive. The executive being the president being the person responsible for the maintenance and for ensuring that our laws are implemented. He is obliged once the law is passed. So we think that the Attorney General will actually not help in this process. Mind you, this bill has even gone to the Attorney General for their comments, that if they have any issue with the process, they would have passed those particular comments. As we speak, the proposed bill has gone to the Attorney General. Attorney General has given their comment, and I don't see why government owning the bill will change anything. At the end of the day, once it's passed as public law, the government would have to enforce that public law, and it doesn't conflict, it doesn't contravene, it doesn't, infringe on Article 108 of the Constitution.
No,
and I think
let me just ask Mr. Kabiru a question. So where were you when the Attorney General, your former Attorney General, raised those objections as to the financial cost? Where were you? What did you say?
Mr. Moses, this question you are asking, in the first place, there is view proposed in this particular discussion. The president refused to assign the bill. But far from it, the president mentioned that.
No, I've asked you a simple question. Let's get out in that.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking you. You address it. You address it. We'll come to it. Yeah, Kabiru.
I'm not one person who ran away from questions.
Yes. So answer the question.
With the greatest respect, just give me a moment.
Yeah.
Go on. The president ran away or refused to sign. The president raised a constitutional issue that the pendency of the issue at the Supreme Court requires that matter be dealt with before he can then know.
But it was dealt with on the 18th of December. It was dealt with on the 18th of December.
Can I be allowed to make my point? It doesn't want to be saying.
You finish. Don't worry. I'll come to you. Let him land on this.
The second level of the issue was, where was I? Well, I was not in Parliament. I was not a member of the executive then. So I couldn't have had the capacity to I was not a member of the legislative then, so I couldn't have had the capacity to even talk to that matter. But my personal views on this particular bill has always been clear. And I've never taken a position, and even in the midst of all this discussion about the bill, was even my party was in power, I never held view contrary to the view that has been promoted now. The president was raising legal issues. You disagree with the president, and I had my views on them. I never had the opportunity to express my view. And I think
was it your view at the time, even if it was personal, that Akufo-Addo should have signed it?
My view was that once Parliament had passed the bill, and Parliament being a coordinate arm of government, an independent arm of government with the power so entrusted in Parliament to make laws, and once that law has been passed, the president was obliged to sign or send it back to Parliament in accordance with the procedures of the Constitution. Yeah. If the president was agreeing with Parliament on the bill, and that there were certain reasons why he felt that the bill could not be signed in its current form, the president had procedures. There are procedures provided under the Constitution for the president to follow. Yeah. The president could have decided to hold the bill in abeyance or on ice for his tenure to end. So those are my personal view, that the Constitution provides with the president. The president is not bound is not obliged that he must, at all costs, sign the bill. He's the executive president.
Yeah, indeed. The Constitution says he has a right to say no, but then it kicks in a whole raft of processes.
Evans,
you have to return. I'll come to you. I want him to substantively land on this point. So to be clear, Kabiru, you are not in favor of the government sponsoring this bill, for this bill to be introduced as a government-sponsored bill.
Exactly so. And if one of the reasons why I'm against is that we must develop a culture of even where certain bills are in the interest of the public, but because the executive has some interest, they don't want to push such a bill. Private members should be able to pass such bills because the representatives of the people are the members of parliament. But if we always have this culture that every bill must come from the executive, we are not developing that.
But how then do you solve the problem of the constitutional provision that says a private member's bill shall not impose a cost on the consolidated fund, which is still an issue there that needs resolving? If you have the government doing it on your behalf, that solves the problem.
You see, Evans, that's what I said. I stated that the argument is they are resting the argument on Article 108 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
And I argued that the interpretation being placed on that particular provision is wrong because the title, which is also an aid to the interpretation of constitutional provision, states clearly that settlement of financial matters, right? So it is the intention of the framers of the Constitution that anything stated under that particular title seeks to, and if you look at the opening, they are basically talking about fiscal bills, bills that are intended to impose tax on people, or bills that are supposed to confer benefit on the people by way of, revenue. That is what the premise of the Constitution, and even I participated in the recent constitutional review process, and this article is one of the areas that we are thinking of proposing amendments to, especially the title, so that it will reflect the content of this particular bill. So that argument, the Supreme Court has not pronounced on it. Like he said, the Supreme Court only spoke to the jurisdiction, whether or not Parliament and whether or not the court has the power in order to, make a pronouncement on a bill that has not actually been crystallized into law or an act of Parliament. And that was where they ended their matter. And I think...
I think, Evans, he's had a lot of talk. Because I think he's just going round.
Definitely, hold your horses for a second. I'll come to you. Because in the matter of the law he's quoted, I know you have to be on
but the matters of the law, I think that the way he's even placing is wrong.
No worries at all. I'll come to you on that.
Okay.
But more fundamentally, Kabiru, your primary objective is to have the bill passed. That's all you want. Doesn't matter how it's passed. If the government brings it and it's passed, in fact, you kill two birds with one stone. You avoid anybody going to court to say, well, let's interpret this clause that says that, and then it's passed anyway. Where really is the issue? Using your objective. Let him address this question. I'll come to you. Let him address this question. But I'll come to you. Let him address this question.
But you have spoken
don't worry.
so long.
No, hold on for me.
The program with the greatest respect.
No, don't worry, Kabiru. Don't worry, Kabiru. Let's track back.
You cannot.
Because I'm asking a question.
But you cannot speak. Always.
I'll come to you.
So what is our presence here?
Don't worry. I'll come because I asked you because I want him to address this one. Kabiru, let's backtrack a second. On that question I asked, your fundamental objective is simply want the thing passed. If the government does it, it passes. If you do it, it passes. But the government passing it obviously deals with another problem that you may have if somebody goes to court. Address that for me.
First and foremost, it is my position, and a considered one for that matter, that processes and procedure is as good as the end results. That's my first conviction. And that conviction is embedded in my very nature that you cannot just be interested in the end results. You must be interested in the process. That's the first thing. Two, I am arguing that, and sternly so, that we are building a democratic culture where the laws of the country provides that a private member can bring a bill. And there's no single bill that requires public enforcement that will not be like a charge on government or government revenue. There's no single bill. I'm saying that, and I'm saying that to the extent that the laws provide that we should make such a bill, this is an opportunity for us to test that particular law and for us to even bring that law to action so that it provides a remedy for future laws to be made. But if you just say that, okay, let's do it as usual, government should bring the bill, any bill, that means that it even kills individual initiative. And I argue that, look, what if there is an issue like the previous government? if we were relying on the executive to implement this bill, would the bill have come to pass? Definitely no. So once we are in consensus on this matter, I think that we should not drag it. Let the private members go on with their bill. Let the president and the executive support. It will still achieve the same. It will set a good precedent for future generation to come and inherit.
And everybody is dying to go. But can I put it to you more bluntly that this objection, would it be fair to say, is because you simply don't trust the government and their motive for wanting to do this?
Well,
would that be fair?
It is not going to be fair. I accept the delay, accept that the theatrics they are playing. I don't think that they have done anything significant to suggest that they will not support this bill.
Okay.
I have not said that, and I will not be but just of the view that the private members will, and the laws of this country, which provide that private members can bring a bill, should also be that
offers clear clarity. I'll come to you, Emmanuel, very shortly on that point of whether we agree with it. But now let me hear you, because I know you've been begging to go. So
you see, I've heard Mr. Kabiru.
Yeah.
He's talked a lot. I didn't hear him over the last 13 years when we were fighting the LGBT causes here in Ghana.
He says he wasn't in Parliament.
Where was he? We didn't hear him.
He wasn't in Parliament.
Well,
you
don't. Am I in Parliament?
No, you haven't.
Exactly. Let him come and join the coalition. He's welcome to come and advocate the way he's advocating.
But he's in your corner now.
Well, he's in my corner, but it's a very politicized corner. Because, for example, he say, I said the president refused to sign, but because the court the court gave a decision on the 18th. Why didn't the president execute or sign it? That's fine.
He disagrees with the president, actually.
Well, fine. No, that's fine. But I'm just indicating that I didn't just say that the weakness had to do only with law enforcement. I talked about the policy balance, care, treatment, and support, which have to be catered for directly either by the government or the cost implications. Now, his interpretation of 108, he claims the title, which title? In any case, your view, I don't know whether he's a lawyer, but if that is your view, that's your view. Or except the Supreme, because he had challenged it. What's his name? Sky had challenged the matter. So unless the Supreme Court conclusively makes a statement on it, we can't even say that that's the position of the law. And by the way, Evans, that's the problem people have. That if you rush to pass this law without thinking through all the problems that may arise, boom, you pass it, boom, they go to court. So you're going to drag it again. And that's what Mr. Kabiru doesn't understand. Because look, this thing has taken a lot of time and a lot of thinking. The cost implications, his own Attorney General, well, he's an MPP parliamentarian, I think so, Godfrey Dami wrote a paper criticizing the bill that has been brought originally. One of it was that the costs, treatment and support was going to bring costs. That's why it was removed. And then the, flexible sentencing, which was supposed to bring some policy balance to it, were all removed because the proponents of the bill, and he's here, we had heated arguments because the coalition was of the view that if you remove the care, treatment and support, it's all about throwing people into prison, which is exactly the difficulty we ran into when the bill was publicized. And look, you're dealing with an international community. If you understand the fight that is going on, and which went on in his own party, if he really is an MPP, and I'm sure he is.
No, he is.
Well, he is. Then he must understand.
He's a member of parliament.
Fantastic. But then if you know the history around this matter, from the president to those who were close by him to the parliamentarians, if he has any idea of the struggle that we had to go through and the international uproar, then you will understand why when we are passing it, it has to be done in such a way that the policy balance is restored. Because otherwise, you're going to have trouble. Even when we had categorically drafted the law such that we said the cost of the care, treatment and support will be borne by the individual himself or by NGOs, the Attorney General said no, it was going to impose a cost. Are you getting me? So we've got to be very careful. And that technical thing that weakness, the charge on the consolidated funds, will not be met by his argument that law enforcement is by the executive. That cannot be met. The cost, treatment and support, that cannot be met by the argument that he's making. So we need to be careful the way we bring this law and finally deal with the matter. Otherwise, we'll open another hatchet for people who think that you pass it, you see where we're going to go. Because I know people who are even preparing their writs of summons to go to the Supreme Court on the human rights matters as well. So we need to be careful, and that's the point I'm trying to make.
Emmanuel, weighing for me, you're also a co-sponsor where do you stand on who should sponsor this? You are currently sponsoring it, right? But the president has opened the door for you, says, we are interested. He prefers that the government takes it. Have you had any conversations that progresses this president's intention to reality?
Well, our initial meeting with the president was the fact that he would introduce the bill as a public bill, not a private member's bill. That's where we all stood as we won. We have been waiting for the Attorney General to bring the public bill, and it's not forthcoming. And so those of us who have decided to bring it back decided that, well, the bill has already been passed in its state and form. Why don't we reintroduce it as a private member's bill? The government can arrest it now that, well, yes, indeed, it's been introduced as a private member bill, but I'm taking it off. And I want to bring it as a public bill. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you are not opposed to that?
In fact, I would prefer that it to become a public bill.
Exactly.
I would prefer because of the argument my senior brother has made. The fact that, you know, when it is a public bill, you take away all the politics about it. Currently, there is politics around it. I just saw that, what's the partisan roadblocks? From what I've heard from my colleagues now, it's becoming a partisan roadblock. And I'm not in Parliament to pass this bill as a partisan bill. I want it passed for Ghanaians.
All of Ghanaians.
We should all look when we came together the first time, even though it was only Reverend Fojo from their side, from the NPP side, who joined us, he was actively involved. And I told my heart for him.
Andy Apiakubi also came to help. Andy helped a bit.
No, he was not a co-sponsor.
Oh, okay, all right.
You know, he chickened out last minute. It was only Reverend Fojo who joined us to fight.
I remember that, yeah.
It should not be that we are revenging or there is some form of, we want to reciprocate. No. It should be that this bill is for Ghanaians and we are passing it for Ghanaians. And so it should not be partisan at all. If government will take it, arrest it, and then, bring it back as a public bill, I'll be the most happiest person.
Okay, so that is where you
disagree. Without that, we'll go ahead.
But it's an interesting thing then, because I see two co-sponsors poles apart on that particular subject. I mean, how does that affect how you proceed further?
It isn't.
It doesn't? Okay.
It doesn't at all. What I'm saying is that we'll go ahead.
Yeah.
In case government want to take it. There's nothing wrong with government arresting.
This is where one co-sponsor says, no, I don't want that.
No, it's also, government can...
In parliamentary procedure, will that be a problem?
No, at all.
It doesn't?
Oh, no, at all.
If one sponsor says, I don't want this approach...
No, at all.
And he wants to insist that I want to sponsor it, and the government says, I want it, what do? This is just for parliamentary procedure.
Evans,
what does
Ghanaians are giving us a super majority.
Okay.
So the motion will come, and the question will be put. And if those who are for it will be for it, and those who are against it.
But why would? But my question would be, why would he be against?
No, I don't think he would be against.
He said clearly.
My colleague's
government taking over the bill.
Why is he opposed?
No, but he's explained.
No, Kabiru's point is that government has delayed. Government has not shown commitment of reintroducing it. Now we have introduced it. If government comes to arrest it and say, well, I'm bringing it back, I don't think we have a problem with it.
The point he was making was that you must encourage private members' bill.
Yeah.
That's
yes, of course.
But you should. But if there's going to be a problem with that private members' channel, why don't you do...
There will not be a problem at all.
I'm just taking the technical point that I read.
There will not be a problem.
Why don't you ensure that we don't have this cost problem hanging on your neck?
That was put to him. He still stands by...
No, he didn't respond to that. Trust me. He was very categorical. He was still insisting on the enforcement bit. He seemed to have forgotten that I spoke about two technical objections in terms of the finance. I disagree with even his interpretation of the finance bit according to the Article 108. But as I said, that's a matter. If he disagrees, I don't know, is he a lawyer? I just wanted to be sure. Because if we disagree, it's just the Supreme Court.
He's smiling there.
Well, lawyers disagree.
No,
even if private individuals disagree.
He's a lawmaker.
Well, that's fine. My point is, if we disagree, well, I agree. Even if we disagree, it's the Supreme Court that's going to rule on the matter.
And you don't want the Supreme Court to just want it passed.
It creates a hatchet. Trust me. Look, this business, and he said he wasn't in Parliament, but he was in Ghana. This issue of the matter even going to court last year, Evans, you were here. There are people who thought that it was orchestrated because the president was addressing a diplomatic corps. He indicated, oh, somebody has filed a writ when no writ had been filed. You were here. You had all the commentary.
He said it before it was filed.
And there are people who think, and as I told you, I know Richard Sky, this issue of this bill, we discussed it in my law class. And so Richard raising the issue even in court was a bit loud because he knew the objections that were going to be raised. So this, you know, it's easy to say, okay, let's go and pass the bill. But let's not open a hatch, and I'm going to repeat it, for people who can go to the Supreme Court and raise these objections if it goes to the private members.
So this obviously is best if you get consensus moving forward.
Sure, yeah.
So there's this thorny issue there around one sponsor say, look, I want this to go ahead the way we've started. Government stay out of it. You say you don't mind. Government has indicated it will. The two of you at some point will need to...
No.
You need to come to a compromise position.
We'll definitely meet as soon as it's laid. We'll meet as co-sponsors to even go through it. And we'll invite the coalition to come and take us through, especially the new members who have joined, who are members of the co-sponsors, who have not had a time to listen to the coalition. We have to invite the coalition because
here I see a problem emerging. In the minute the Attorney General makes that move beyond the promise to come, actually actualizes that, you see the challenge that he's already told you that I don't want the government.
He's for the bill,
I would say that he didn't say.
So, but basically, all of you will have to come to some conclusion.
Because we don't have problem at all. I don't think my colleague will have problem, or any of the co-sponsors will have problem. It is good that we should have private members bill. We should be given the opportunity to produce a private members bill. That is fine.
Okay.
But in the case where government decide that, well, I want this bill to be a public bill. I mean, we cannot fault the government. We cannot stop the government.
I will play something that Afenyo Marking told me here on Monday pretty shortly. But I want Kabiru to weigh in for me on that last question I was asking about getting the united position on this when the Attorney General, or if he comes along to say, government wants to take this forward. Kabiru, weigh in for me on that pretty quickly. Let's get clarity on that before we hear from Afenyo Marking quickly.
Evans, my belief is that if government wants to bring in a bill of this nature, government has what it takes, and government has the right to initiate such a bill. My position is equal that government has no power whatsoever to arrest a bill that has been started by members of parliament as a private member bill. And if you read Article 93(2), clearly, even the president has no right. He can only bring bills to parliament. We have the ultimate responsibility to make laws for the country. The president cannot, and the executive cannot seem to be determining. It's just by way of a structure that the framers of the Constitution suggest that some of these bills should originate from the executive. So clearly, a believer in the purest form of separation of power. I don't think that the president even have the capacity. Members of parliament may concede to saying that, okay, the executive is interested, bring it, and then let's go through the regular process of passing the bill. And if we concede to that, well, I think that it is a notion. But my belief is that the president...
So the question to you then, will you as a co-sponsor concede if the Attorney General comes forward?
Like I said, there are reasons why I even be part of the private member bill. I would not for any reason concede to the executive wanting to take the bill. Otherwise,
so that's right. He says he won't. So that's why I was asking the question. Then.
Of course, but my colleague also mentioned about the fact that it's not for Kabiru or it's for any individual members of parliament to disagree. If the sense of the majority of the House is that the executive should continue, so will be the position of Kabiru, even though I will disagree with that personally.
Okay, so that offers clarity. There is some revelations that a minority leader on Monday made on the subject, and which will pose some partisan challenges going forward because of what he perceived, or actually what he said happened last year. I want you to listen to him because that will give you some context. This is minority leader Alexander Afenyo Marking on PMSS on Monday.
When this LGBT issue came up, we struggled. I was a majority leader. It started when I was deputy. It's not everything I can disclose, but I'll just tell you a bit of it. We discussed the two political parties. We discussed at the highest level. I mean, at the highest level. And there was consensus that it was needless.
Both NDC and PPR.
I am telling you, quote me. I'm telling the whole world today. I was part of the discussion. Up to a point, I was leading the discussion. That we operate in an international ecosystem. At the highest level, we engaged them. I repeat, at the highest level. And there was that consensus that considering how the international ecosystem will react to this, we should tread cautiously. Then at the leadership level in Parliament, there was also a certain level of understanding. They also expressed their own concerns that, look, this is something that they have put out. So to chicken out that there's already an existing law will be difficult. So we had to go back and still discuss back and forth. And then the final consensus was that, okay, look, by our Ghanaian value system, we don't really agree to this gay rights, etc., etc. So some individuals who were pushing a certain agenda against the country, the stakeholders, we sat with them. And I was a leader of government business then. And we had several discussions. In the end, the compromise was that, okay, you can pass your law, but the bit of incarceration, the post-conviction sentencing, where the person will be incarcerated to go to jail, because the country itself is moving away from a post-sentencing custodial
to non-custodial,
to a non-custodial sentencing regime. That would be a safe landing for all parties. So if you check the Hansard, I filed a motion to amend that bit so that all others remain. That one to last minute, our friends hit us hard. And that hot afternoon, like you said, I wasn't a lucky man. Assumed leadership in a 137 at that tail end of the regime, the administration. It was not easy for me, all right? My friend Ato Forson could not look me eye to eye. I will call Ato, he will look elsewhere. The chief whip, Kwame, I will go. I was literally crying, Kwame, let's save our country. He will look you eye and say, Kwame na, you know, it's not me. Oh. Then they will be tossing you, go here. Go and see this, our big man. You go there, midnight, early morning. You go and wait. They say, oh, okay. Then last minute, they say, oh, it's our boys. It's our, you know that kind of plausible deniability, that game, eh? They will say, oh, it's the back bench. Then some judge will come in, I'll call some. You, at least, let's compromise on this. Then you also, I'll get back to you. I need to talk to my bosses. Meanwhile, the same bosses are saying you are the problem. Look, it was not easy for us.
Okay, so Emmanuel Bajor, that's the minority leader. Is it true that there was consensus last year that this was needless?
Evans,
and the NDC backtracked on it. He even cried at some point. Nobody heard the message.
Evans, this is news to me. I'm a co-sponsor for Crying Out Loud. You can ask Moses. When we met as a group, as sponsors, I was leading this whole business. Until I said, well, I'm not a media person. We want Sam George to take over. He was there. So Sam George was our spokesperson, and I was running between the coalition and Parliament. So if there's anybody that needs to be talked to, it was me. Honorable Afenyomakin, today I've realized that he's not been truthful at all. He has never come to us as sponsors to either change or do any amendment, or if you hold on the bill.
He says at the highest level.
What
of a
highest
party.
level?
So
If you are
people
talking
above the
If
those
people are
ones.
above us, why won't those people above us call us as party folks who were pushing for the bill? You know, was our flag bearer.
But he says he went to Sam George, who was a co-sponsor.
He said he's one of
So
the
why
small-
would
Yeah, he
Sam
said-
George come to us as sponsors? Sam George was not the only sponsor.
Yeah, he was a sponsor. He says he
of
was
us.
told that it's Sam George and those people, and so he went to Sam George.
And
Sam
I'm
George said,
telling you,
well, it's
and
my
I'm
boss.
telling you, authority, that Sam George did not tell us or inform us that anybody has called him. Rather, our party was behind us. Everybody, look, we meet as 8 members, including Honorable Fojo, to agree as to how to go about this business.
You know,
Now he lost. He lost when he brought those amendments. He lost miserably. He had 137. We had 137.
He says he brought it because they had been this backroom negotiated.
Needless.
Exactly.
No, in Parliament.
and that he should go forward and lay it, and you guys will support him.
In Parliament.
Only for you to betray him.
In Parliament, if you have those backroom, you would have to talk to the sponsors. If it's a ministry, you have that conversation with the ministry. Nobody had any conversation. Otherwise, we would have backed down on it. You came with all kinds of, thinking that you are the majority leader, and therefore people should just succumb to you. Whatever you say should be.
So you're saying that you're not aware of any
This
agreement,
is the first I'm hearing
any
this.
private secret agreement,
And I'm
that
surprised.
caused him to come to the floor to
Evans,
initiate
I am
the amendment.
surprised that the same minority leader today will stand in front of everybody in Parliament advocating for this bill. So what kind of double tongue is this?
No, okay, so let me explain. He then goes ahead to say, because of what he just narrated, that is why he's going to force it down your throat.
but is it fair?
So he makes the point. In fact, on the floor, he says, you would like it. And you know what he said then?
So it's not principle.
Yeah, exactly.
I am principle that this bill, I will continue
what is
to
the
be
meaning
part of it. If it's not assented to, I will not come back to Parliament.
No,
I told my colleagues.
Evan,
Okay,
And
just
hear
a
me.
second. I'll come to you, don't worry.
If this bill is not assented to or passed, I will not come back to Parliament again.
So you're
On
actually
principle ground.
you're putting your
I am,
parliamentary
Evans.
career.
This is a studio, a live studio, and I'm saying it. I've even told my colleagues, I've told Sam, I've told everybody,
passed.
all the 8 parts.
If it's not passed and assented to.
If it's not passed and assented to, I won't come back. What am I coming to do? If I don't have a principle, I don't have a moral principle to my generations unborn, then what am I doing?
It
in
means
Parliament?
that much to you. After 16 years, you're willing to give it all away because of the
Evans.
LGBTQ bill.
Evans, that is my whole life. I mean, some of us, you know us. I did not
Yes,
just enter into Parliament because I want to be a member of Parliament. I have principles and must defend those principles. And therefore, I'm saying in authority that my colleagues who think that we are just there to do politics, some of us are not there to do politics. We are there because we are there for a purpose and we are there for the forward movement and advancement of this country.
Evans,
I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, very obviously.
Well,
very obviously.
well, just quickly, he mentioned names. Let me tell you some information which he probably has hidden from everybody. He saw, because everybody knows that this bill that came out, it's not just the 8 members of Parliament. There's this whole coalition behind it. Honorable Afenyo Markin, I think he's Catholic. The Catholic Bishops' Conference is part of the coalition and they support it. If he thought that he had to consult, did he ever come to us to speak to us? And he's saying it's needless. That's a very dangerous way.
He says there was a consensus at a very high level.
But then he's
on both sides of the aisle.
He said he was leading that consensus.
Yes.
Mind you, let me give you the information. He told Sam George not to listen to people like me because I am an activist. Those are the words that he used, described me to Sam George. Because we had discussions. Because now I'm opening up.
It's hearsay, Alice.
It's not hearsay. I mean,
Somebody told you, weren't
well, whatever it is, I'm just indicating to you that he's somebody who never believed in the law. That's why he's using the word needless. How can anybody say that a bill that is to protecting the family values of Ghanaians in respect of actions that everybody knows is detrimental by the health science data, the human, the mental health data. Everything indicates that it's so dangerous and so risky. You are telling me that it is needless. Question.
No, not his view, though.
No, he said
says
he was
it was
leading
a consensus.
But he was leading
at a higher level.
But he was leading it. He was the proponent.
But
let me explain to you.
Context,
No, but let me explain.
The consensus was
Evans, maybe you seem to have forgotten. This needless argument has not been made by him alone. They use the word needless because they say, oh, there's already existing law. And you heard him say, what is the existing law? Section 104, as you and I know, has been tested in the Supreme Court. And that has to do with consensual knowledge by male. Where is the lesbianism? Is it covered? What about transgender? What about all the acronyms that are there? Are you getting me? Look, as you and I speak, the University of Ghana, since last year, has changed its statutes to reflect transgender matters. Mr. Afenyo-Markin, what was the law? If you say it was needless, what was the law that covered this transgender business in the existing Ghanaian law? And you know, the good thing about the proponents of this bill, we took our time in respect of the memorandum that was attached. It was very extensive. In fact, for all you know, even the definition of marriage as between a man and a woman was not specifically stated in our law. So even the Attorney General indicated that that was a good aspect to bring this law. So to say that it was needless and that you were pushing the agenda, I find it rather surprising.
Let me ask you, exactly. Let me ask you.
It represents a position, and I'm putting it to him, that Mr. Afenyo-Markin, you didn't like the law. And that's a fact.
But he's
and
not,
I'm prepared to defend you, to confront you on this anytime, anywhere.
He actually said that in that interview, that it was his position at the time that this is not something that was going to be beneficial to the country at the time. What he said, does it really make sense? But let me ask you, when
the HIV prevalence, which the commission, the AIDS Commission has indicated, let's interrogate the thing that he said.
When you heard him say, though, that if indeed it was that meeting, I don't have no basis to doubt him, that there was actually a meeting at the highest level, and both parties agreed was needless. Does it surprise you?
Well, I'm surprised about what you said because, well, if he had the highest meeting, maybe he was meeting some NPP people, I don't know, or some ND. I am not aware. But I'm saying that Honorable Afenyo-Markin knew those who were backing this law, and that was the coalition. And he actually said that we were activists and told Sam George not to care about us. And you could see all his geriatrics, and when it was the day was passed on the 28th. Go and play back the tape. He tried to filibuster it and delay it. Honorable Afenyo-Markin, you can't fool anybody. Yeah. You didn't like the bill, and for some reasons, you didn't like the bill.
To be fair to
whatever
him,
reason.
He's never changed his position on the matter, though. He says he's still in this position as of last year. That, as he's expressed, that at the time, he did not believe because of the economic potential consequences.
Which potential economic?
At the time, you remember that you had Biden in power, they have threatened Uganda and others.
Okay, so
as
I'm just saying, today, how can you, which is even shocking.
Yeah.
You are a leader. You were just then a majority leader. You were just opposing or selling Ghana's sovereignty for Sebi through Mu. How is that possible? You're telling us that because if we pass this law, they will refuse to give us loans. We should not pass the law and allow young people to be having anal sex. That is what
not necessarily.
No, hold on. I'm just saying that, and I hear this from politicians a lot. Let me make my point, because it's very frustrating and very annoying that a sovereign country like Ghana, you are telling me who led Ghana into the state in which we were, that you're talking about IMF. Who led it? In any case, IMF, are they dashing us the money? These are loans that we're contracting. In any case, I'm willing to see whatever IMF loan that we're contracting that says that, if you don't allow to do LGBT activities, we won't give you the loan. Trust me, we've been running IMF for how many long years? 17 IMF experiences we've had. What is he taking us? So for somebody to say...
Speaking right now on the matter, his position is that this law must be passed. In fact,
he's only saying so because it is politically convenient to him. Because if you listen to all that he's saying, you are saying that he still believes it's unnecessary. Mr. Afenyo-Markin,
but he's made a point on the floor, and you were there last week. And he made the point that they would like it because he says he was not going to allow them to change a word because that is what he pushed down.
Let me give you other reasons why. Because you see, people don't understand the seriousness of this matter. Evans, we have a hospital now, which caters, we call it a holistic sexual therapy system. Unlike Mr. Afenyo-Markin, who just says, oh, you are just throwing people into prison. And because of that, he wanted to negotiate the prison sentence away. Question, how come when the original bill that we brought, it had care, treatment, and support, they also moved to remove that from it? How come? Because, so in the end, when it was removed, it became a trap. So that when the law was passed, oh, you're criminalizing. Are you getting me? That's exactly the sort of thing that they go through. And he's part of a clique of people who think that this law is unnecessary, and he's used the words, it is needless. How can you say so? Trust me, we've treated hundreds of people who are in this situation. Go to the second cycle institutions. They are, for 1,500 cedis, these young girls are being attracted into these things. As I said, in the University of Ghana, they have changed the statutes and are recruiting, the current, what's it called, Chancellor has changed, Vice Chancellor has changed the statutes, and they're allowing transgender activities. And I'm asking which law will correct
I need
this.
to wrap up, but you've given government 2 weeks.
Oh, well, we just said, well, now the 2 weeks had to do with sending it to Parliament, to the President.
It hasn't been laid yet, hasn't it?
Yeah, well,
Emmanuel,
the 2 weeks, I'm explaining. The 2 weeks had to do with sending it to the President to assent, because the Ayariga was saying, well, it has been passed. But now that the Speaker says we've got to reintroduce it, we're saying that let's do what is right and ensure that the little weaknesses that people can exploit.
So for clarity, the 2 weeks ultimatum no longer applies.
No, I mean, of course, we want to give them enough time. But another quick point. The truth is,
30 seconds. I want to hear.
The other quick point is, as far as the coalition is concerned, this is not a partisan issue at all. All of Ghanaians want this bill. By the Afrobarometer statistic, I think 93% is even smaller. So if you're representative of the people, you must represent our views. As I said, all the powers of government are supposed to be exercised for and on our behalf. It's not about you or what you think or some echelons of your party and the impressions from neoliberal people who have infested the NPP and have moved it away from a conservative.
Emmanuel, when will it be laid?
Well, we're waiting for the Speaker. By Friday, we should have a clear direction as to when it will be laid. We, the sponsors, want all of us to be around, just as we did at the first time, where all 8 of us were there. We stood up and allowed it to be laid. My colleague Sam is not in town. Honorable Helen Tosso is also not in town. We expect all of them to return. By next week, as we are all in there, we will allow it to be laid.
Okay.
And then we'll also,
and once it's laid, how quickly do you expect that this will pass?
Well, this has, normally it has to go through the process of advertising.
But this has gone through the process already and passed. So.
Well,
you go through the process again, but not as
yes.
Exactly.
Inviting about 200 members.
Exactly.
People coming flying all the way from London. I don't think
because they want to push their.
Yeah. So how quickly do you expect?
Well, I am not the chair of the parliamentary.
But you must have an expectation.
My expectation that by middle of next year, June, it should be passed.
Okay. And Kabiru, does that work for you, that timeline, or you want to tell? In fact, you expect the view that you want it passed in 48 hours or 24 hours. And laying next week is something that you also support.
Yeah, I mean, but if you don't indulge me, certain comments were made by Afenyo-Markin, and I thought that to and fro, both speakers, I would have had the opportunity.
Yeah, please, yeah. Before we wrap up.
First and foremost, it is not proper to say that Afenyo-Markin lies when he said that he had engaged people at the highest level. If he did not engage Honorable Bejira, it is very well and good for him to state that me, as a sponsor, he never engaged me. But he mentioned names, which did not even include Mr. Bejira. And he also said at the highest level. So I think that his statement was clear. You could actually argue that he could have engaged more because as a sponsor, like Bejira, he never engaged me. And that should be the context. 2, Mr. Afenyo-Markin has expressed his personal view and even said that considering the situation, we can have a London zone, a safe London. It is to the fact that he was, as a leader, he was to carry everyone around. Because if there are differences, if people are conflicted about a certain matter, one hand, some people are against it, on the other hand, some people are supporting it. And listen, we cannot discount, no matter how small they are, the few people who are against this bill. They are, for a crown, they are also Ghanaians. I am a sponsor and a believer in this particular bill. But as a leader, if there's even an infinitesimal number of people who are speaking in favor or against the bill, we need to listen to them and we need to factor their concerns. And we cannot just throw away the concerns of human rights activists in all this discussion. And that is the reason why Moses stated that we need to take time and do it. I believe that he was talking in respect of all these concerns that people are raising. So I think that this is what we need to put the matter. And Afenyo-Maki has a principle on this particular bill, but he believes that to the extent that the bill was passed to the happiness and glory and to the, pomp and pageantry of the people of Ghanaians, that bill must again be put and passed through. This is his position. It's not the position that he is for the bill, as in principle, but he believes that if the good people of Ghana wants the bill, and on the basis of which the people of Ghana voted for NDC partly, then the bill must equally be put to, the wishes of the people must be honored. And that's basically what I think that the timeline on how the bill should quickly come to the House, I've already stated my position. Next week is okay. I agree with the Honorable Bajira that it should not go beyond next week. And then the business committee should prioritize this bill and make sure that but I again of the view that this bill, unless of course Mr. Moses is telling me that there are certain things in the bill that we need to take or we need to add, without anything to add and without anything to subtract, I think that this bill is okay and is thoroughly made. I did not even do a lot of work because as a sponsor, this work has already been done. I read it, I associate myself with it. There are a few things added, and I think that we are good to go, and we shouldn't go beyond. It says first by half of next year. It's too far.
I agree.
We have about 3 months to finish, almost 2 months to finish. We are rising in December. Why can't we finish it before we rise? I think that if we go into next if we are going into next year, we are betraying the mandate of the people. We should equally put at the top priority of the people of Ghana. It is not only when it is about taxes that we overnight, but when their social and cultural values are concerned, we must also give it the same energy that we give to the imposition of taxes.
Kabiru, thank you very much.
We make him a member of the coalition.
Well, he by virtue of his being a co-sponsor, he is a member already. And by the way, in Afenyo-Maki, you also have an ally now.
I hope a genuine.
He has an ally now. He says he wants to pass.
Good friend.
He said they shouldn't dare change anything in it. They should pass it, which really is his view. He's actually wanted on principle that if you wanted it last year, you should want it this year without change. That you don't disagree with.
Oh no, I don't.
Which is fundamentally what his view is on the matter. Emmanuel, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ivan.
He
doesn't
like activists.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Ivan, let me just conclude that. NDC won largely because of this bill. And so NDC will pass it, NDC will sign it.
So the president has told you he will sign it without doubt?
We will pray, otherwise he wouldn't sleep.
The majority leader has said it. So we will pass it.
You pass it? Passing is not a problem. I think
he'll
sign it. He's told you that.
We won largely because of this bill.
If he doesn't pass it, we're going to pray. He won't sleep. Trust me. He's a good friend of mine. We will pray and he will sign it. Otherwise, he won't sleep.
Okay.